Their attraction may be difficult to explain, but from Los Angeles to San Francisco, they stalk Ramirez.
Everyone makes him look so bad, you know, but I know that he's a nice person because I've met him, and I know.
He's convicted of 13 murders.
I know. But he's really a nice guy.
But there's no question but what violence does quicken the pulse of many people, and certainly of young women.
Every time he turns around, I kind of get that feeling, oh no, you know, he's gonna get me next, you know.
But yet you're fascinated by him.
Very, very.
I'm not afraid of him. He just doesn't look like the type to kill somebody.
Hybristophilia is a controversial sexual disorder in which a person is attracted to someone who's committed some type of heinous outrage, such as murder, rape, armed robbery. It most commonly manifests in young women who become infatuated with serial killers and mass murderers.
Each day, the courtroom is filled with spectators drawn by a fascination with Theodore Bundy himself or by the gruesome details of the crimes. Blood-stained pillows, pictures of the murdered co-eds, evidence that the women were sexually abused. What is unusual to see is that many of the onlookers are women, young women, contemporaries of the 5 Florida State sorority sisters who were assaulted in their beds a year and a half ago.
I chose to make this video about hybristophilia because when I tried to find information online, it was very disappointing. There's pretty much like 3 or 4 perspectives that I found, and they were all kind of like one-dimensional. The most obnoxious was there's a lot of men who are involved in the like men's rights movement, or men going their own way, which is a movement of men who hate women so much that they actually choose to live life completely without them. And I found a documentary by one of their types, and I'm gonna show some of the comments because it's pretty cool. So these guys pretty much view hybristophilia as just like the ultimate proof that women are so fucked up and like only like fucked up dudes. And so you can see some of the comments are like, women are amoral. But it's kind of ironic because it's like, these are women who are attracted to the men that's on your side who are doing these horrific things. So, I don't know. But, yeah. But it's not just men who think that hybristophilia is so fucked up. I'd say that the most popular reaction and information put out there about hybristophilia is the public being like, whoa, like what the fuck? And sure, yeah, it's not great, but obviously there's more to it than just being like, whoa, like, oh my god, that is so weird and gross and fucked up. What is wrong with these chicks? I mean, I'll admit, that actually was kind of my reaction when I saw a video semi-recently that was like a news piece about how Nicholas Cruz, the school shooter, was receiving like bags of love letters, and I was just like, oh, you know, like super bizarre and disturbing and insulting to the victims. But that's kind of what kicked off my whole interest in figuring this out and figuring out why it feels so wrong, you know? And as for the hybristophiles themselves, I've noticed about 3 distinct subcategories. Exhibit A, the oblivious.
I'm not afraid of him. He just doesn't look like the type to kill somebody.
And then we have Exhibit B, the unapologetic, sociopathic murder groupie. The last subgroup of hybristophiles that I've come across are the ones who acknowledge the existence of their deviant sexual desire, but also do not take any action in achieving some kind of gratification that would be harmful to other people, such as, victims or the victims' families, or going about it in a way that would contribute to our society's glamorization of serial killers and turning them into celebrities in such a way that blurs the lines between, reality and fiction in such a way that it makes it easier to kind of compartmentalize the horrific atrocities that these mostly men have committed. In 1980, during the murder trial for Kimberly Ledge, Ted Bundy famously proposed to character witness Carol Ann Boone, and naturally she said yes. And because of a loophole in Florida state law, just declaring two people married in a courthouse can be legally binding, so they were married from that point on.
Carol, do you want to marry me?
Yes.
And I want to marry you?
Yes.
And I do want to marry you.
He said you did.
Hybristophilia is a type of paraphilia, which is an umbrella term for abnormal sexual desire, typically involving extreme or dangerous activities. Other examples of paraphilia include voyeurism, exhibitionism, masochism, sadism, and necrophilia. There's a theory that's often used when experts are trying to understand serial killers or how people end up being so sexually deviant. And one of the theories is that there was some type of significant event while they were developing and understanding their own sexuality that somehow got intertwined, So, with Jeffrey Dahmer, he was very interested in dissection and seeing what was inside of things. And just that kind of gore and just the inside of bodies, and it kind of developed into this compulsion to completely consume and possess another person. And one of the best examples of this imprinting is in the case of Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker, who is a very popular object of affection for murder groupies. But when Richard was 11 years old, he had this fucked up cousin that showed him photographs that he had taken while he was in Vietnam, and the photographs were of Vietnamese women that he had murdered and raped. And in one of the photos, it showed his cousin performing oral sex on himself with a decapitated head of a Vietnamese woman. So there's that fusion of sex and violence on an impressionable young Richard Ramirez. And then that same cousin also murdered his own wife a couple feet away from Ramirez, And he also had extensive head trauma, seizures. His mother worked in a factory where there was toxic fumes while she was pregnant, so all of her kids ended up having some type of defect or issue because of that. So it's a lot of factors, but that's just an example. So obviously there's a huge gap between serial killers and hybristophiles, but I bring up the imprinting because I think it's plausible that perhaps the hybristophile had a similar type of imprinting while their sexuality was developing, and it just manifests in a different way. But in the same as with sexually motivated serial killers, it's still a deviant sexual and social behavior. Another factor that I think can influence or contribute to people developing hybristophilia is how serial killers are portrayed. In our media, there are thousands of TV shows and movies that are either fictionalized serial killers or are, movies based on real serial killers. Pretty much any, serial killer who's committed, a a large amount of murders or has some type of like really disturbing element to it, you know, like how Ed Kemper like fucked his mom's head, you know, or, you know, with Jeffrey Dahmer and all that crazy shit. I've already watched like 3 movies about Dahmer, you know, and these things kind of, I don't know, a lot of the times the serial killers are portrayed by like handsome actors, you know, and are portrayed as being like either an evil genius or just like this wounded boy, you know, that never got enough love or something. And, you know, there's truth to those aspects to it, but it's also like a very sanitized and glamorized account of it.
Open in her blood. I'm thinking she was pregnant. If we don't stop him, he will kill again.
You look tired. Did you have a busy night?
Quite busy, yeah.
It's about power and control.
Do you have any idea of the effect you have on men?
It thrills him to stalk these women.
Haven't you heard? There's a strangler in the prowl.
To break into their home. What could be more intimate than squeezing the life from another human being?
Intentionally or not, I mean, probably not intentionally, the TV show The Fall was a really good example of a TV show kind of sexualizing and glamorizing a serial killer. The TV show shows kind of like a cat and mouse hunt between Gillian Anderson, who I love, and which is why I watched the show in the first place, while she's trying to catch the serial killer who's played by Jamie Dornan, who is actually the star of the horrible movie 50 Shades of Grey. I am ashamed of female kind that movie was so popular. Truly awful. But yeah, it just kind of shows like he's considered a sex symbol, and here he is, you know, portraying a serial killer. And I don't know. I mean, if you watch it, or even, you know, you can just see in the trailer that, you know, there's this handsome guy who's just like dark and mysterious and living this double life, you know, and oh, how intimate it is to like, you know, watch someone take their last breath. This mix of sex and violence is not like a new phenomenon to like Hollywood and movies. I'm just saying, I think, you know, while I'm trying to understand hybristophilia and how it fits in like a larger like cultural context, I think these things are relevant, you know, to the conversation. In a way, I realized that hybristophilia isn't like vastly different than the way that we kind of glorify, like, say, self-destructive musicians like Kurt Cobain, you know, someone who can go through a similar kind of like traumatizing upbringing, definitely dealing with mental, emotional health issues, but rather than, you know, turning into a killer and being outwardly destructive, they're inwardly destructive, you know, they kill themselves and, you know, through that unintentionally or intentionally harm the people around them, you know. And this is another thing that the media kind of shows a glamorized, sanitized version of. And I remember growing up and idolizing like Kurt Cobain. I loved him. You know, I just wanted to grow up and be like a cool drug addict musician, and I actually accomplished that goal. And it's definitely didn't really like work out that well. It was definitely, I don't know, but I'm just saying, I don't think it's right for people to act like hybristophilia is such like this, you know, crazy, incomprehensible thing. Like, some behavior by hybristophiles is incomprehensible. Like that woman who was like, I know he killed all those people, I just don't care. You know, that's horrible. But that's not like a woman thing, you know. In the Men Going Their Own Way video that I watched, you know, they'll take these like specific instances of a horrible person and hold it up to be like, look, see, told you they're bad, you know, when it's just like, I don't know, it obviously doesn't show the whole picture. And in humanity, there's a lot of shitty people who do shitty things, and thanks to the internet, it is not hard to find proof of that. So, but I don't really see it as like a broader systemic thing of like, you know, women just love fucked up dudes, you know? Like, even when we do, like, there's I think that's definitely influenced by our culture, our upbringing, you know, and then also like a positive empathetic need to want to fix someone, or like, you know, just be the person that can change him, you know, that kind of cliche, which doesn't necessarily come from a dark place, but obviously the way that people handle the hybristophilia and that attraction makes a huge difference. Like, it's fucked up to go. I've been also thinking of doing even like a whole separate video on murderophilia, which is like people kind of, I mean, it's just like with any celebrity memorabilia, like there could be like a tissue that Charles Manson blew his nose in, and it'll sell online for hundreds if not thousands of dollars. You know, it's that same celebrity thing where you just want like a piece of them for whatever reason. Maybe because they're just so outside of the realm of normal, you know. On either side, there's like the celebrity, the like perfect fantasy, and then you have the serial killer, which is just like the exact opposite, you know, someone who rejected everything about society and what's good and what's moral, and did these things that are just so like incomprehensible that maybe it is kind of human to be like curious about that, you know. I mean, obviously we are, because even people who critique the media like myself, we're still consuming it. We're creating this huge demand for like constant coverage of tragedy, you know, and who knows, you know, what the long-term effect of this is. It's really just like a recent blip in humanity that we have 24-hour news coverage, and you know, so much of our life revolves around media and that kind of consumption. So, I don't know. So, since this is the internet and pretty much every opinion put out is absorbed in bad faith, I would like to explain that I am against murder. I do not think it is good. And if you hated this video, make sure you smash that dislike button. And yeah. Bye.